Hey, Mike.
Hey, Matt. What's up?
So, give you a little clue on where we're going next. You ready?
Okay.
Get your gumbo and po' boys ready. Because guess where we're going?
Canada?
No, New Orleans, you donuts.
Oh, nice.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2M Football.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt. Will you speak up a little bit?
I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike.
All right, now that we got our names established, that's Mike and I'm Matt. We are kicking off our third team, the New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans?
New Orleans, you got to talk like that. The home of the po' boys. I'll just stop now.
All right. I think that's probably for the best. So the New Orleans Saints are the third place division, or were the third place division in the NFC South last year with a 7-9 record.
The third place team, not the third place division.
Did I say third place division?
You just said third place division.
Can we just start over?
I'm all about continuity.
I didn't say continuity. Do you even know what that word means?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so.
I just hear it a lot.
Saints were 7-9 and were the third place team in the NFC South division last year. Did I get it right that time? And I don't think there's a team in the league that has the biggest talent differential between their offense and defense than the Saints. And I think the stats will actually back that up because
It's entirely true.
yeah. And the Saints overcame one of the league's worst defenses with mostly on the arm of Drew Brees and his continued brilliance, even at age 38. So if we just look at the offense, this team looks amazing. So let's do that first.
In other words, you will not hear from me the rest of the time.
Oh, you have a lot to explain about why this defense was so bad. But we'll start with the good, and that's the offense.
Well, be prepared to be sorely disappointed.
With you, I'm always ready for that.
Such a vote of confidence.
The Saints averaged 29.3 points per game, which was second best in the league. They put up 426 yards per game.
It's almost as many points as they allowed per game on defense.
That could explain why they lost more games than they won, if they gave up more points than they scored. Why are you over here?
I'm reading your notes. Just ignore me.
They threw for 317 pass yards per game, which was first in the league. But we're middle of the pack in rushing yards with 109 per game, which was 16. So starting with Drew Brees, the quarterback. He's 38 years old, as I mentioned already, but he set a career high in pass attempts this year with 673. He completed 70% of those for 5,200 yards, which led the NFL. 37 touchdowns with 15 interceptions. He's been in the league for 17 years now, and I'd say he's not showing many signs of decline. He's had the shoulder injury here or there that he's had to work through, but hasn't missed much time. And
I think his worst game was against Denver, because that was the game I watched, and there was like 3 interceptions in that game.
Yeah, that's my next line, actually. He had a few more turnovers this year than usual.
I had no idea that would have been an awesome way to go about that stat.
Are you sure you had no idea? Because you were just over here
I was trying to read the
20.
all of them in my notes. Get out of my notes, yo.
Let go of my notes. Go. You know, like the waffle commercial.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you knew. Anyway, so Brees is awesome. As long as this guy's the quarterback, the team has a chance to win a lot of games, no matter how bad the defense is.
Tell you how good Drew Brees is, and Mike's fantasy name was the Birds and the Breeze.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for giving me a shout out there. I was really proud of that.
That is actually a really
I looked on websites to find names, couldn't find a good one. I thought of that one myself. Wow. And I found a little icon for my team logo. It's a picture of a bee with a little speech bubble. And he says, "We have to do what?" Okay. So yeah, Brees is great. And at running back for this team is Mark Ingram. He rushed 200 times for 1,043 yards with a 5.1 average, which is nice, and 6 touchdowns. He also caught 46 balls for another 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
I happen to be partial to his backup.
Yeah, who's a free agent, which we'll get to in like 2 minutes. Less than that, probably. This was Ingram's first 1,000-yard season in the league. And despite the success, he was benched briefly due to some very untimely fumbles. He only had 2 fumbles in the year, which isn't that bad, but One of them, the one that led to his benching, was at a critical point in the game versus the Seahawks, which they did end up winning, but
you never
he
put
just
your
had
team in a
inexcusable-
bad position.
No. And he did look good running the football, and with Tim Hightower, the backup, not re-signed yet, it looks like Ingram is in line to come back as a starter next year. But let's take a look at Tim Hightower first. He had about a 4-year span where he was out of the NFL, even though he's only 30 years old. And he got the call from the Saints very late in the season last year in 2015, and definitely proved that he has a lot left in the tank. And then this past year, he came back and was with the team the whole season and ended up with 130 rushing attempts for 548 yards, 4.1 average, and 4 touchdowns. And sometimes a rotational role with Ingram. He actually started a few games over Ingram when he got benched for those fumbles. Like I said, he's 30 years old, but he still definitely looked like an effective running back. But he's a free agent, and the Saints haven't re-signed him yet, which is a little confusing to me.
You go through all that effort to bring him back, and then you're like, thanks for the help.
Right. And it's especially strange because they did re-sign the other running back on the team, Travaris Cadet, who's been more of the passing downs back. They only gave him a 1-year, less than $1 million deal, and his role has pretty much been limited to third down, catching passes. So I still think they should bring back Hightower. I'm sure you agree. You love Hightower.
I do.
And also there's John Kuhn.
Kuhn.
Sorry, I only put his name there so we could do that. He's the fullback and the goal line back. He had 5 touchdowns last year.
And I'm the tight end now.
Well, hold on there.
Whoa.
At wide receiver, there was a very interesting situation that developed in the first couple days of free agency. Wow, that's scary. And that's involving their receiver, Brandon Cooks. He's been their number 1 receiver for the last few years, but there were a lot of rumors flying around that he was unhappy with his role. They weren't using him as much as he wanted, and they traded him. They gave him to the Patriots of all teams, as if they needed the help.
Yeah, as if the Patriots need another offensive weapon.
So as part of the deal, the Saints got the Patriots' 1st and 3rd round picks, and the Saints gave up Cooks in their 4th round pick. So they get a couple draft picks out of it. But that 1st round pick is, since they won the Super Bowl, the Patriots did, that 1st round pick is 32nd. It's basically a 2nd round pick. And same with that 3rd round pick. It's basically a 4th round pick. But still, they got some good stuff back in return. And I don't know that it's necessarily going to hurt them that often because they've got a very strong group of receivers.
Well, and you put anybody with Breeze, and he's going to make him a star.
Right. And that's exactly what happened with Michael Thomas, the Saints' 2nd round pick last year out of Ohio State.
The Ohio State. Any
Thomas,
chance I get to say that.
Yep. Thomas instantly became a big part of this offense with 92 catches, 1,100 yards, and a team-high 9 touchdowns. And I think his dominant rookie season is part of the reason they felt like they didn't really need Cooks. Also, there's Willie Snead, who's been productive.
That name gets me every time.
Snead.
Just the whole name, Willie Snead.
That's a good name. I think it's the 4th or something, too. I remember seeing that on the back of his jersey.
That's a lineage.
WS4? Why isn't that catching on? RG3? No. You know how Robert Griffin is a quarterback in the NFL, and they call him...
Is he a quarterback?
Well, he's not on a team right now.
He's not a quarterback.
He's still a quarterback. Anyway.
You could say that Terrell Pryor's a quarterback, too, but...
No, he used to be a quarterback.
He threw a few passes as a wide receiver.
That is true. Okay. Anyway, before we get too far off topic, Ted Ginn Jr. is another receiver they signed from Carolina this offseason on a 3-year, $11 million deal. And he's the new deep threat for this team. He spent the last 2 seasons with Carolina, like I said, and averaged 15 yards per catch with 14 touchdowns.
I don't really know how I feel about that quite yet.
Well, he struggles with some really, really terrible drops.
That's the thing. And right now with Breeze having a higher turnover rate and Breeze's age getting up there, maybe his production doesn't drop, but you can't drop passes in key situations for the whole same reason Ingram got benched was because he made only 2 fumbles, but very, very inconveniently, horribly timed fumbles.
Yeah.
Ginn's got to watch those drops because...
Especially as a deep threat, a lot of times, like if he gets open, gets past, wide open, past the safety, past everyone, those are touchdowns. If you drop that, you're taking 6 points off the board. So he's...
And a team that's been stuck in an 8-8 rut for a while.
And Drew Brees, his career, you got to think his career is winding down at age 38. They want to get this guy back to the Super Bowl because he deserves it. He deserves to be in the Super Bowl, but we'll see how Ted Ginn does because he has the speed to still contribute and take the top off a defense. But he's going to have some killer drops this year like he does every year, it seems.
I really wanted to make a joke there, but I really just decided it was better that I didn't.
Well, I'm kind of interested now.
Like Ezekiel Elliott takes the top off?
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you said that.
That's going to be on the internet forever.
Or until this channel gets shut down.
My bad.
So at tight end, after spending... so they had... I don't know where that sentence was going. That was weird. So they had Jimmy Graham for a really long time. They traded him to Seattle for Max Unger, the center, who is great, by the way. And they've been trying to fill that void, though, that Graham left as a receiver ever since. And this year's attempt was Coby Fleener, who spent his first 4 years with the Colts. They signed him to a 5-year, the Saints did, they signed him to a 5-year, $36 million deal last offseason.
And Mike was inherently frustrated with him consistently.
That was week 1, right? I started him.
You started Coby Fleener and he had zero fantasy.
No, he had like 0.6, one catch for 5 yards or something.
Yeah.
It was bad. And he had a pretty quiet season overall. He got better over time, and his 50 catches were 4th most on the team. And he did have 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. But in 11 out of the 16 games this season, he had 3 catches or fewer. So he just wasn't a big part of the offense a lot. And he only topped 100 yards one time in one game. So this signing definitely didn't pay off in year 1, but time will tell if he can step into the role the Saints kind of hoped he would. And at offensive line, so I already mentioned Max Unger. He looks awesome at center. He only allowed 12 pressures all season, which is amazing. And similar to what we were discussing with the Bucs, they had some backup players who just didn't do well. At left tackle, they had Teron Armstead. He was the starter. He played in just 7 games this year because of injury, and the replacements they had for him were just awful. And the whole left side of the line, really, because the guard, Andres Pete, played inconsistently and was often a liability, especially in pass blocking. They did sign right guard Larry Warford to a 4-year, $34 million deal this offseason. So that should help there on the right side of the line, but they definitely need to address left guard. And that's about all I got on the offense.
So, tossing the ball over to the defensive side.
Just like Jay Cutler does all the time.
Yeah!
Nailed it.
Right there's the high five. Right there in the other one. So to go off the point, you said that they scored an average of 29.3 points per game.
Uh-huh.
The defense allowed a total of 28.4 points a game.
So they should have won more games than they lost.
Well, I don't know. When your defense is giving up just as much as you're putting up on the board,
they're going to be close.
Which gave them a 31 ranked overall. They allowed 375 yards, which was 27th. 274 of those were passing yards, and guess where that ranks?
Low.
Bottom of the barrel, 32nd. But they were 14th against the run, only allowing 101 rush yards per game, which points to their hugest problem. Biggest problem. Yeah, we'll just make up words because that's what I do best. I put down, and Mike can confirm, it's asterisk and has 3 exclamation points at the end of it. You didn't even
This
look.
should be good. No, I'm just getting excited for all this buildup.
Their secondary just didn't seem to exist. A lot of it was due to injuries, though, to be fair. Sean Payton had his hands full this year with injuries on both offensive and defense, but we clearly see which area he is better able to adapt to.
Yeah.
This secondary was just decimated, but even when it had pieces there, it just gave up large plays. Now, I looked at Denver. Not because it was one of Brees' worst games, but because I figured between Simeon and Paxton Lynch, younger quarterbacks, this defense had a good chance to play well.
Right.
Yeah, no. And this was consistent, I saw across a few times, is they left large holes in the zone. So like when you play a zone, you're obviously supposed to come up and secure a tackle. You're giving up a completion while not giving up yards. The problem is When the ball gets thrown, usually you see the entire team move, or you see players converge so that if one person does miss a tackle, it's not a lost cause. They didn't start to move until after the completion, which is a very bad decision. I don't know if it's because these backups were inexperienced and didn't know how to, I don't want to say not know how to play their position, but they just weren't used to it.
Yeah.
But that delay gives up yards, and yards gives up points. And it's something they can't do. And the pass rush seemed to take forever to develop. Against Denver, it wasn't until halfway into the second quarter that they were actually starting to get pressure on Trevor Siemian. And that's way too long to give a quarterback time, whether he's a rookie or whether he's, a 12-year veteran.
And that's not one of the better offensive lines in the league either.
That was my surprise, is I figured that with this offensive line, they didn't get their first big turnover until 29 seconds left in the second quarter, and they got their first interception. Which that to me, against Simeon, a guy who's up and coming and developing, and your two only targets in Emmanuel Sanders and the other guy,
Demaryius Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no one else on that team to throw to.
So it's like I figured, okay, this ought to be pretty easy. Like these corners should get some good time in. It's like it takes you almost 2 full quarters to develop your first turnover. This is not a good sign. I love the front four that they have. I really do. I think they're a great team. They need to work on building up those edge rushes where they can get these guys. And
Cameron Jordan is a great pass rusher, but I think he's the only really good pass
rusher that front four. Yeah. I love that they're solid. Like against, you can see that they're great on the run. They only 14th overall, not bad, middle of the pack. But they need to develop a better pass rush because it takes way too. The problem is not that it's there, but it takes so long to develop that these guys get on a roll. And most of these quarterbacks, when they start rolling, it's almost impossible to really shut them down. But what I did notice that when the injuries started to absolve towards the end of the year, as the game went on, everything started to tighten up and get in sync. But then again, there's the problem is you've built up a deficit. You've allowed these quarterbacks to get on a roll. A lot of times it's just too late at that point.
Right.
I do think, and I think this would be a huge benefit, and this is the other big news that's floating around, is if they could get Malcolm Butler from New England. That would be a huge addition to the secondary.
Yeah, it would.
Because the person I had on my highlighted player was Paul Kruger, one of their linebackers. 1.5 sacks, 25 tackles, a forced fumble, but he is 31 years old, so he's starting to get up there. His speed didn't look like what it once did, because I remember this guy being a big name.
Yeah.
And this year, it took a lot to even dig up his stats.
He plays outside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is conveniently where they drafted, or they got from free agency, Monte Teo from the LA Chargers. I had to think about that for a second.
LA, yeah.
I put down that if they're going to keep him, to put him on a short-term deal because they really need to focus on these cornerbacks and safeties. That's where I think this defense has the biggest lack in. And that's all I'll really say on that.
Yeah, another sign, I agree with you that they probably won't re-sign him, is that they picked up an outside linebacker named Alex Okafor from the Cardinals.
Okafor's a good pickup.
And he's young, too. So that says to me that they're probably not looking to bring back Kruger. Just one thing I'll say in defense of the secondary is that Delvin Breaux missed 10 games with...
Such a bro.
And he has a lot of cool stories too, bro. I feel like you hate every joke I try to make. Okay. He missed 10 games.
No, I just know that look that I give you. You're just like, I'm just going to...
It bothers me. It makes me feel so awkward. Like I just said the stupidest thing. That's how it makes me feel. Anyway, so Breaux missed a lot of time. In his rookie season, he actually had 3 interceptions. That was last year. This was his second season. So he looks really promising, and hopefully he'll come back full-time next year, and I think that'll help a lot. In addition to, like you mentioned, I really think they should pursue Butler because just getting...
Watch them just get Butler and give back the first and third round picks back to New England so it winds up being a wash. So basically the trade would have been Cooks for Butler.
Yeah.
When all was said and done.
I mean, I would have taken that trade for... I think that would have made sense for both teams originally. But so that should help the secondary a little bit. They're letting go free safety Jarvis Bird, I think. He's a free agent, and they haven't re-signed him yet, which I agree with.
So he's going to be a free bird?
Yeah, a free bird. That's good. They, oh God, I already know you're going to hate this. And he flipped him the bird on the way out the door.
Nah, I'll roll with that.
Okay, cool. But that, even though he was bad, that still leaves a hole at free safety that they need to address. So they should
Draft.
Yeah, they should get Butler. And Butler, the Patriots have to. So the Saints can make him an offer, and the Patriots can either match that offer to keep him or just let him go. And what I've been reading is that they'll probably want to match the offers to force the Saints to give them something for him. But it also, I've heard, same thing we've been hearing about Roma, but that the deal is almost in place for that to happen. So we'll see. But if they can do that, acquire Butler and draft a safety, with, like you mentioned, with the moves they've already made to address linebacker with Manti Te'o and Alex Okafor, this could potentially be a
much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
And if they can just get the secondary working, then, like I said at the beginning, Drew Brees gives his team a chance to win every single week. And if the defense can help them out just a little, they will.
Brees can get him in the game. The defense has to keep him in it.
Yeah.
And it just takes this defense way too long to warm up. And at that point, you're usually in a hole, and poor Brees has to rely on throwing just way too much.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, there might be a little bit of an opportunity if Atlanta slips a little bit after losing their offensive coordinator. Tampa Bay's looking pretty good, but the Saints have a chance to
claim second or even first place.
And they don't want to waste the last few years of Brees' career, so you can bet they're
third
motivated.
place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about it.
So with that, it's time for
Too Long Didn't Watch. Let me gather myself for a moment here. Okay, I'm good. Thanks for buying me time. Saints were 7-9 this year, third place in the division, and they had a very contrasting split between their offense and defense. Offense was one of the best in the league. Defense was one of the worst. And on offense, it started with Drew Brees, who had another amazing season, even at age 38. Completed 70% of his passes, 5,200 yards, which led the NFL, 37 touchdowns with 15 interceptions, which is more than usual for him, but we won't blame it all on him.
not all.
Not all of it. At running back, they have an interesting situation here where Mark Ingram has played really well, but they benched him a couple different times last year because of fumbles. And he was productive, though, with over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. And the other guy in that backfield has been Tim Hightower for the last year and a half, and he's looked pretty good. Last year, 4.1 per carry average, 4 touchdowns. And he's a free agent, though, and the Saints haven't made a move to re-sign him yet, so we'll see about that. They did re-sign Javaris Cadet to a 1-year deal, but he's been just a pass-catching back. Wide receiver, they made a big move earlier this offseason by trading Brandon Cooks to the Eagles.
What?
I'm looking at the letter E here. I don't know. That made no sense at all. I'm sorry. To the New England Patriots for a couple of draft picks.
New England Eagles.
But they have enough depth at the position with rookie Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, the newly signed Ted Ginn Jr., that I don't think they'll be too adversely affected. They've got Colby Fleener at tight end, who they're hoping will be the next Jimmy Graham, but it's not looking good after 1 year. But we'll see if he can do better in year 2. They've got some problems at offensive line. They need to add some depth at left tackle, but most importantly, they need a new starting left guard. And that's about the short version of the offense.
Defense was the exact opposite of everything that could be possibly good. Essentially bottom of the pack. I mean, that 14th was really negligible against the run. I mean, that was the only thing they were good against, which you can contribute that to their stellar linebacking core of helping with that. But in terms of secondary, they just were riddled with so many injuries, I don't think they could compensate in. Trying to plug and play with the holes that they had. Even when they had guys coming back in, they had other guys going out with injuries and missing time. It was just an entire debacle. Whether it's a scheme change that they need to work on the zone coverage, or whether it just improves with the fact of, drafting newer guys, reclaiming old people that have been injured and will be regained with healthy. I think they need to get Malcolm Butler from New England. I think that'd be a huge upgrade in the system. Kruger, I don't think, is going to be around with the addition of Monte Teo and Okafor.
Yep.
And they just need to do something to get this defense to run as hot as quickly as the offense can. The offense gets these guys in games, but this defense can't keep them in it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the Patriots struggled with for a while was Brady and the offense were on fire, and the defense was kind of there because they needed to be.
Yeah.
But I expect this to be a little bit better next year. I really do. And I really, really hope for this Butler trade to go through. Because it's something the Saints desperately need.
Bottom line for this defense is trade for Butler and draft a free safety, and they'll be in so much better shape next year.
Because they've already made free agency splashes, and they've strengthened up with the younger guys. And you can't be making Breeze at 39, which he'll be next year, throwing the ball as much as he did.
No.
His arm's going to fall off. And with that, we wrap up the New Orleans Saints. Thank you guys for being such a part of this. It's been exciting. We have one more team left to go, and then we're bringing it home with our home division. So, one more to go. One more. I hope you guys enjoy. Click that like button. We really appreciate it. We could use those likes. Subscribe to stay tuned because we're going to have some exciting stuff coming up. I promise you that. Mike and I have some top secret projects in the works.
Yep.
So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Leave your comments below on what you think is going to be happening with the Saints. Do you think Butler would be worth whatever it is that New England's going to ask for? Do you think Breeze is starting to decline? And if so, who do you think that the Saints should grab as Breeze's next heir?
Also, I'm curious how Saints fans feel about the Brandon Cooks trade. Because while he had his issues, he was a very productive part of this offense.
And with that, we will see you next time, everybody. Follow us on Twitter.
At 2M_football. Bye.